Africans are pouring in from everywhere at the moment.
They should accept them.
They should just be like, oh, come, take our homes, take
They
our
should
jobs,
accept
take
Africans.
everything.
Because when you guys came in mass to Africa,
But that was so long ago. I
that
cannot even bring
was so
it in
long
now
ago.
anymore.
But your companies are still there, looting Africa.
Perhaps.
Neo-colonialism.
Perhaps.
You are still there stealing our resources, using our resources to develop your countries, and you don't want us to come here. You are asking how should you guys react when we come here?
Example, how are we supposed to react?
Imagine a thief steals your television, your TV, and you go to his house to watch a soccer game. How should the thief react? Exactly. Just be quiet.
The Bible has been used as a great obstacle in the progress of humanity.
When I went through some of your prior work, you indicated that there's a relationship between religion and colonialism.
So my point of view has always been that when we look at the history of Africa, you see a lot of African indigenous spirituality before the start of colonialism. People worshipping forefathers as ancient spirits up the mountains or in the clouds, things to do with nature. And around the start of the colonial trade, for most of Africa, that changed. People started practicing in Africa organized religion. They started reading texts for belief, which they've never done because their evidence has been nature, has been the cloud or the sun, or their forefathers answering them through meditation or whatever. It's never been Christianity. Christianity as we know it today was brought to Africa alongside Western thought, alongside Western philosophy. It was given to African people at a large scale as a way to divide the mind and physicality, making you believe that you need to suffer now in order to have a good time later, instead of teaching you radical thought in fighting now to make change later, right? And that taught Africans a very submissive worldview. Even though Christianity spread to Africa, a different path from colonialism, certain parts in Africa like Ethiopia and so forth, Christianity at its most part was brought by colonizers.
You know what people don't talk about enough? How colonization wasn't just about stealing land. It was about hijacking the mind. They didn't just conquer people, they rewired them. That's the real psychological warfare. Convincing the oppressed that their suffering was order, that obedience was holy, and that freedom was chaos. They used everything, religion, education, even language, to reprogram people's sense of self. They told colonized nations that their gods were devils, their languages were primitive, and their traditions were backwards. And once you believe that, they don't have to chain you. You'll just police yourself. They created the civilized versus savage binary so deep in the global psyche that even after independence, people still chase Western approval. That's the genius of colonial psychology. It doesn't end when the flag comes down. It ends when the mirror changes. Religion was the most effective form of control, though, right? They didn't just introduce Christianity, they redefined it. They replaced the liberating parts with obedience and called submission divine order. They turned the same book that said, "Let my people go," into a handbook for staying in line. They said, "Blessed are the meek," all while enslaving the meek. They said, "Obey your masters," all while being the masters. That's not faith. That's psychological warfare dressed up as morality. And then came the schools, where they taught colonized children that Europe discovered everything, invented everything, and is everything. They erased native history, rewrote resistance as rebellion, and called genocide progress. They didn't have to burn every village. They just had to teach the children to see themselves as less. And when those same children grew up and started leading, they were already half colonized in the mind. That's how you keep control. You don't need armies when you've already conquered identity. Now they call it globalization. They call it humanitarian aid. They call it free market. But it's the same game, it's just different packaging. Debt traps, development loans, sanctions, media. They don't have to occupy you anymore. They just have to convince you that you're free while they hold the receipts. Fenyon warned us about this. Not because he was violent, because he understood the violence of being told your only value is in proximity to whiteness. Colonialism didn't disappear, it just rebranded. They don't need whips when they have Wi-Fi. They don't need chains when they control what you see, what you learn, what you dream of becoming. That's the war nobody sees. The one that makes oppression look like order. Because once the mind believes the master is moral, the body doesn't even try to run.
When you see Westerners complaining about illegal immigration, right? And they'll be like, can't Africans just stay in their continent and fix their continent? Can't they just stay in their countries and fix their countries? Why are they immigrating to our countries? Why are they destroying our way of life? Why are they flooding our countries? We cannot take care of them anymore because they are overweighing our welfare system and this and that and that and this. Then I turn and look at them and I'm laughing because it's funny, right? How can you be complaining about a problem that you started all by yourself? How can you be complaining about Africans crossing over to your countries where your politicians are actively destabilizing government in Africa? How can you be complaining about Africans crossing over to your countries where you guys are actively sponsoring dictators in Africa, making sure that those dictators stay there and suppress and persecute their own people, making sure that those people in those countries have no voices because the leaders you want them to be, you will force those leaders on them and you would exploit their resources and they will get nothing out of it? How can you be complaining when you have used your IMF and your World Bank to squeeze Africa dry? How can you be complaining where your companies are in Africa exploiting our raw minerals and we don't benefit anything from it? How can you be complaining when you won't give us loans because you don't want us to set up manufacturing plants, but rather for us to sell you our raw, better still, no, not even sell, but give you our raw minerals, and in return, we buy finished products from you. You come to Africa, you give us some money to run the government, and the interest rate on those loans are so high that we can barely survive. And on top of that, the loans you are giving to us have a lot of restrictions. You can only use it for this and this and this, but not this. You can pay your employees, the government workers. You can pave one or two roads here or there. I don't care if you embezzle the money, that's up to you. But you cannot set up manufacturing plant. You need to buy from us. Okay, we will extract your raw minerals in order to cover the loans we have given to you. And then the loans we give it to you, you will use it to import finished product from us at a very, very high price. So who are you to blame for this problem? We borrow money from you. We pay interest on those loans. You extract our raw minerals and we don't even know how much quantity you are collecting because you are the one telling us that this is the quantity you've extracted. We don't know. Maybe you are stealing a lot. We don't know. Maybe the records you are giving to us is all forged. We don't know. And the money we borrowed from you, we now have to use that money to import finished products. Who are you to blame if people start immigrating to your countries? Who are you to blame? You give us aid, and those aids has a lot or have a lot of strings attached to them. So who is to blame? who is really to be blamed. Do not expect any appreciation for putting out a fire that you started yourself. Do not expect any appreciation for that. I'm talking about religion and manipulation of the Bible. I don't know how many times I will have to say this on this platform, but I think it's something that I must keep saying it in hope that people in Africa wake up. I think it's very important that the African spirit be woken up. It's really important because we cannot keep on going like this. We Africans are being squeezed to the bones. Religion has been very, very effective in destabilizing Africa. Religion has been very, very effective in making the African man become powerless. Religion has been a very effective tool in splitting Africans apart. Religion has been very, very effective to make us look like we are hopeless, we are useless, and we cannot change our own situations. Religion has taught us to pray and not do anything but just pray in hopes that things change. And the so-called preachers are the worst. They are the worst. In short, I have always said this, right? One set of people who are way more worse than politicians are preachers. At least we all understand that politicians are greedy and selfish, and politics is a game of self-interest. We all know that. But when it comes to the preachers and what they say and how they use the Bible to manipulate people, they will tell you that God loves a cheerful giver. That blessed is the hand that giveth than the one that taketh. That giving is the most valuable thing you can ever do or skill to have. Which is not wrong. It is right. Giving is very, very important. And all of us must practice the spirit or must embed in us the spirit of giving because giving is super, super important. My problem is just the hypocrisy with them, the preachers. When they come to church on Sundays, they scream, give, give, give. And they turn around and collect from everyone in the church and buy private jets. They turn around and collect from everyone in the church and buy bulletproof cars. They turn around and collect from everyone in the church and build the biggest auditorium. Why? Why? Ask yourself this question. With the level of suffering and hunger and starvation in a country like Nigeria, do the so-called preachers need to be buying private jets? If they decided to set up factories that could employ the people in their own churches, won't that be of way more importance than a private jet? Can't they use the money they use for buying a private jet to fund social programs for people in their church and fly commercial? All the big, big buildings they are building are for what? Isn't it God in us all? Isn't our body the temple of the Lord? Do we necessarily need those massive structures? Do we? No, we don't. But the reason why they buy it is because they are trying to gather enough real estate for themselves. They are using the church as a non-profit organization to acquire enough land, enough buildings, enough businesses for themselves. And you, foolish and gullible Christian, think that they are doing it for you. You are shouting, my daddy has a new building. My daddy has a huge building. My church is huge. We have branches everywhere. How foolish are you? How foolish are you? You know, ask yourself this, right? If your daddy and your mommy care about you like they pretend they do, wouldn't they be doing things that would benefit you, that would improve your life? Wouldn't they? Wouldn't they? But are they doing so? How much have they done to financially improve your life? How much? You tell me. No, you tell me.